Casually explained the global military superpowers.
While we all know there's nothing we can do to improve our own lives and it's best left to whoever's in the White House, it's also the case that the people at the top of our institutional hierarchies have more than just the clamoring citizens to answer to, as they have real issues on the global stage they have to make worse. Meaning, in order to actually understand the larger scale objectives of a nation, we have to zoom out and view every country like we're playing Civilization, and we're in charge of large-scale decision-making for the country's resources and political interests, rather than viewing the world as a citizen from that country. A good example of this is that in economics and politics, everyone says that America is the most powerful country in history, as they have the best technology and are the richest civilization of all time. Then immediately everyone in the comments...
But we're the richest civilization by GDP. We're not the richest civilization by individual. I feel like that's such a gross inaccuracy. People always go, the U.S. is the richest country in the world. Yeah, but the majority of that wealth is held by the people that are at the top, right? The average income of somebody in the United States, we're not even like top 10. Like, actually, I gotta look that up. Luxembourg, Switzerland, Iceland, Ireland. Average annual wages in the U.S. 2000 to 2024. 2024 average annual wage is $82,000 in the U.S. That is just not true. Monaco, Bermuda, Liechtenstein, Norway, Switzerland, Luxembourg, U.S., Iceland, Ireland, Isle of Man, Qatar. What's the lowest? Burundi, $260. How do you even live on that?
It says, well, I'm American and I'm not rich. And I'm sure that's correct, but observe how zoomed out I am on the map. I can't see you at all, meaning you are a trifling statistic to me. Similarly, what's clear both in real life and in video games is that the most significant threat to your empire is other nations enacting military force towards you while you're just trying to get your supply chain together to make light bulbs. For this reason, I wanted to look at the most powerful nations on Earth in terms of military might, which means looking at all 7 nuclear powers in the world, starting with the weakest and moving up to the strongest.
Who's Winnie the Pooh? Oh, Xi Jinping.
To preface, I'm not going to be mentioning any countries in Africa or South America. This is because they don't have any nukes, meaning they don't matter or exist, so we can just delete those. This is how they do it in the Pentagon, by the way. First, we have our honorable mentions, which are countries that have no nuclear weapons but are still extremely formidable. Iran. Iran currently does not possess any nuclear weapons, but recently was enriching uranium to levels above 60% in a facility 90 meters.
How do we know if a country doesn't have nuclear weapons? Is that like, are we able to know that? Like, couldn't a country have nuclear weapons and hide it? Even if you are spying on these countries, I'm not saying Iran has nuclear weapons, but I'm saying like countries could just have nuclear weapons and just not say it. But I think it's better to say it because that's the idea of mutually assured destruction. Because then you ensure your nation's survival from imminent threat because you could just threaten nuclear war back at someone.
Meters under a mountain. This was a bit suspicious and of course alarming to America's Department of Defense, because as the name implies, what America is defending itself from is another country possessing an object that its current arsenal couldn't destroy. Thankfully, there is not yet such a thing. Just so you know, I wrote that description before they rebranded to the Department of War, which, let's be honest, if you thought America was ever defending itself from anything, the only—
Oh my god, and that jackass right now that's just fucking big dude, he's like a social media influencer. Who's the head of the Department of War right now? And he just posts on fucking Instagram Reels all the time. I'm like, dude, go do something. go fucking do something. Pete Hegseth. Go fucking do something, bro. He's an influencer. He posts more than I do.
Technology they would need is an Iron Dome that shoots down Boeing 767s. Saudi Arabia. Unrelated, Saudi Arabia also has no nuclear weapons, but is still top 10 globally in terms of defense spending, and is a fairly—
Defense spending, but I feel like Saudi Arabia is also just so— like, even if they're not the top in military power, they have just raw power from wealth. Like, the amount of money that the Saudi families have is more than, like, billionaires combined. Like, the Saudi families are, like, so fucking rich.
Quote from the ruler of Dubai, which was, "My grandfather rode a camel, my father rode a camel, I drive a Mercedes, my son drives a Land Rover, his son will drive a Land Rover, but his son will ride a camel." This statement might sound like he's humbly stating from shirt sleeve to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, but he's really saying, yeah, I'm just built different. Which pissed off his kids in the House of Saud, and now they all get chauffeured in solid gold Phantoms. Nevertheless—
Wow.
Gold Phantoms. Nevertheless, they've recognized they can't just print money from selling oil forever, and their current grand strategy is to transition their economy from a gas station to the hub center connecting Africa to Eurasia and become the economic center of the Middle East. Plus, after hyping up their plans to build a 170-kilometer-long city that is...
Yeah, didn't they just give that up? I feel like Saudi Arabia starts so many, like, trillion-dollar projects that they just fucking shit out for 6 months and then go, never mind. Like, they'll just, dude, work at 24/7 on it, and they go, never mind.
Taller than the Empire State Building and was getting me excited for someone to actually do something cool but really stupid for once. They shockingly paused construction and were then like, maybe we can turn it into an AI data center instead.
Oh, is that what they really did?
7 as the weakest nuclear superpower is Israel. This is because Israel has no nuclear weapons, as it has committed to keeping the Middle East denuclearized. But they have stated that while they have no nuclear weapons, if they were to come under a mortal threat, they would be forced to use them. After turning the Gaza Strip into the Gaza Strip of all previous civilization, their current geopolitical objectives are to deal with international social outrage over their use of brutal force over a weaker territory by using their enormous political and media influence to convince radicalized Americans that they don't have enormous political and media.
You're going on the Nelk podcast. So, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, what is your favorite hamburger?
Number 6, North Korea. North Korea is estimated...
North Korea's the number 6 military superpower. I feel like that's just because they constantly threaten nuclear war. Like, there's no way North Korea is the 6th strongest nation militarily.
To have about 50 nuclear warheads, although they're far more powerful and effective than any other nation's nuclear warheads because Kim Jong-un personally guides each of their targets, always knows where they'll land, and never makes a strategic mistake. Their current geopolitical objective...
Yo, the shit that was really funny was when they launched that. You see when they launched that military boat and it sunk in front of Kim Jong-un? It's not funny because he probably killed people after that. But what boat was that? Slipped into the water, bow remained on shore. Hull damage and compromised the boat as a whole. Wow.
Objectives at home are to continue launching ballistic missile tests over South Korea in order to further refine their capacity for strategic inaccuracy. Meanwhile, abroad, the soldiers they sent to the Kursk region to help...
addicted to porn. Addicted to porn, dude. All the North Koreans they sent over to Russia and to fight in the Ukraine war. Oh my God. They got immediately addicted to entertainment and corn.
Russia wouldn't stop peacefully gooning to dancing girls after seeing the internet for the first time.
And TikTok.
And have been sent home, likely undermining North Korea's credibility from the inside out with their tales from the free world. Number 5 and 4.
Bro, what? Because they don't have internet. Well, they have internet access, but we watched that one video where they actually had somebody with a North Korean phone. And, dude, it's like all monitored. It randomly takes pictures of your phone. You can't access the majority of things. You can't download VPNs. Only approved apps and things are even downloadable on your phone. You constantly have to get it refreshed. Like, if you're on Wi-Fi or a phone in North Korea, that shit's about as useful as, like, a Leapfrog tablet in 2010. So when they went over to Russia and they had basically unmonitored internet access, they shit their pants.
4. Pakistan and India. While even bigger in population than China with 1.45 billion people, India doesn't yet have anywhere near the wealth nor industry. Pakistan is much smaller in terms of population with about 250 million people, and even with half the GDP per capita at $1,500, it's still more than enough to secure strong borders around India, as both countries have about 200 nuclear weapons. Pakistan has significant trade and alignment with China, which allows China to strengthen their access through continental Asia and into the Middle East, whereas India is more aligned with the West, securing maritime trade and allowing them to bring you DoorDash anywhere in the world. Now we get to the top 3, which are considered the real major superpowers in the world and a major jump up in power level from everyone else. Russia. Russia is by far the weakest of...
It's going to be Russia, China, US. Russia's weak right now because they're going through all of their gold reserves. Isn't Russia just like burning cash fighting Ukraine right now? And like, what I think the person that runs the central bank in Russia went out again. The only woman or person in general that is able to speak out against Vladimir Putin is the leader of the central bank, because they have to be like outwardly honest about how their country's doing, at least to Putin. And she went out and was like, yeah, we're doing like really fucking bad. And then now she's not allowed to speak about it anymore.
Its greatest strength is its enormous abundance of natural resources and sheer landmass, meaning they have access to the Arctic Ocean, the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, and land trading routes to China, Europe hypothetically, and the Baltics. While obviously a shadow of the Soviet Union, a lot of analysts are downgrading Russia's superpower status even further, as their military capacities seem much weaker than previously thought, and Western sanctions mean they're extremely reliant and arguably at the mercy of China as a primary trade partner. While Russia isn't overwhelming in terms of strategic military power, they are—
Dude, take this with a grain of salt from 23-year-old Twitch streamer. I think China, in the way that they're going, is probably going to be making more money and more powerful than the U.S. at some point. China prints money. They fucking sell everything to everyone, and it's, like, not even close. Like, they fucking purposefully, artificially devalue their own dollar, and then their government just has so much money to spend on anything.
Are basically unconquerable because they have 6,000 nuclear weapons, which is more than America. And so it's kind of like fighting a Voltorb who might just get pissed you're winning and at any moment self-destruct. Meanwhile, Putin says that pretty much all of Russia's military actions are not for conquest, but preemptive self-defense from the expansion of NATO. For people who are not aware what NATO is, if you ask a Westerner, we would say it's the political and military alliance formed between the United States and Western Europe after World War II that was then extended to more Eastern countries over time as they wanted trade relationships with the West and security guarantees for themselves after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the formation of a still threatening modern Russia to their east. This is of course my Western bias speaking, because you ask Putin what NATO is, he would say, Mordor. At any rate, it's seems unlikely any further land conquest is going to occur after Ukraine, because what was supposed to be a quick little pro-gamer move that everyone was going to ignore ended up looking like this on the live conflict map in January 2023, and this is what it looks like 3 years later, so you can make up your own mind what that means. Number 2, China. China's biggest strength is turning their country from what was essentially an
What's up, Beijing?
agrarian peasant society getting conquered by the Japanese during one of their many angry phases in the 1930s into the largest industrial economy in the world and second largest GDP in quite literally 40 years. They have a population of 1.4 billion and a GDP per capita of 13,000 US dollars, which is absolutely absurd given its size and where they started. A common sentiment you'll hear online is that China actually only has a population of 800 million, but then you ask for evidence and they're like, well, some Japanese scientists measured their annual salt consumption and it was lower than expected, which is complete.
Their annual salt consumption? Wait, there's people that think China's lying about how many people live in their country. Why would they inflate their numbers by 500 million people? I feel like you couldn't lie about that. Like, you couldn't. There's no way. I could see a country with 1 billion people saying they have 1.2. But there's no way you could be like, yeah, we have 1.3 billion people, and they're overshooting by 500 million.
Nonsense, because my grandma's Japanese, and if you said, yeah, Chinese salt consumption's about 2/3 of what we expected, what do you make of that? She would have said, make a lot of sense, Jamie. Chinese don't know how to cook properly. Nevertheless, what makes China frightening is that because of their export economy, they have a massive industrial capacity. They have similar numbers of tanks and warships to the US, albeit smaller ones, and their air force and overall system technology are far worse. But in terms of shipbuilding, China has a gross tonnage capacity of over 230 times the US and produced over—
You can lie easily now? Yeah, but I mean, dude, lying about 500 million people is kind of hard. Yeah, we do have the same amount of stuff as them, outside of nuclear weapons.
building
And aircraft.
China has a gross tonnage capacity of over 230 times the US and produced over 1,000 commercial ships last year, and America made about 8. Not 1,000, the number 8. And in case you think that isn't a problem, it's Chinese commercial shipyards that also make the destroyers. Currently, China's next big move is most likely the annexation, aka reunification with Taiwan, because to be frank, it's literally right there. And when China was—
But, like, why? What is with, like, this still needed idea of countries and conquest? Like, the world's been discovered. Why not just try to make the current country better than try to acquire more land and space? Like, when we're like, we need to acquire Greenland, that's making your life harder. I know China and Taiwan have had strains for years, and it's a very long historical conflict. But I'm saying, like, with the U.S., we have so many problems. Why are we trying to get more problems? I know it's oil. U.S. is also a war-based economy, so it's its own thing. You want Greenland for oil. You want money from that. You want to have more of a military holding there. Joe, do research. Yeah, it's a lot of strategic shit, chat, and it's also like an ego thing of like, if we acquire Greenland, that would look great for Trump. I'm saying from the average person's perspective, like, if you just threw a random guy in power, they'd do pretty bad. But I don't think they'd go, we need to start taking land. They'd go, why don't we solve part of the problems that we have here? Why don't we fix the problems that are going on here, right? Rather than acquire more of them.
Well, obviously not. That wouldn't benefit us at all. But like, imagine if Vancouver Island was its own country and had the best oil reserves in the world, and America was like, hey, can I buy some? And Vancouver Island was like, no, we use Chinese wellheads, so we only sell them the good stuff, but you can have the shitty oil we sell to everyone else. If that happened, I can assure you that I would be getting bombarded with freedom and democracy against my will well within 24 hours. So while I'm rooting for Taiwan, if you add on the fact that there are American military bases in Japan and South Korea, and they have access to bases in the Philippines, China's only way of securing clear access to the Pacific Ocean is Taiwan. Meaning, it's not looking so great for the little guy right now.
Yeah, but Taiwan, I know it's not looking great, and people say the rising tensions and shit, but doesn't Taiwan make, like, so much of, like, hardware for computing today, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal with war, but it's like Taiwan's such a valuable country for tech and CPU usage, which is like, yeah, semiconductors, like you need that. And so other countries wouldn't want, not even just the US, other countries wouldn't want China to have hold of that.
And partners. You already knew we were number one because I don't want to become the 51st state. The Western alliance of NATO and its homies post-World War II is essentially what everyone watching this video will have grown up and experienced and is likely currently living within. Our greatest strength is by far our enormous wealth and prosperity gained from free trade and cooperation. This came about because post-World War II, once everyone basically agreed to get along with each other instead of making world wars in every 2-decade tradition, this allowed the proliferation of the American global banking system called the Eurodollar, which was kind of like a banking telecom network throughout the world, allowing the proliferation and trade of the US dollar in Europe, Japan, and then basically everywhere else. Because of the West's perception as a liberal, rules-based democracy centered around free and fair trade, everyone trusted the currency and began using it, then saving it to use later.
That's part of the fear, though, is that if our dollar crashes, like, the world economy fucking plummets. Because everything's not, like, we're not based on the gold standard anymore. We're just kind of artificially, like, believing this value of the dollar is the value that we say it is, versus us actually having something tangible that it could be tied to.
Later as a reserve, resulting in what people call the US dollar reserve currency system. Even today, 58% of all global reserves are in dollars, 50% of all trade is done in US dollars, and 90% of all foreign exchange is in dollars as well, which allows immense privilege in terms of global influence. You can sort of think of it like how the global language of business is English. Europeans speak to Europeans in English, except Italians. Educated Chinese students learn English, and if you want to have a successful international career, you essentially must learn English. That means for people born into it, you don't have to do any work, and you get all the rewards. If your hopes and dreams are to be successful in music, film, tech, finance, business, or professional political streaming, you have access to the largest markets right away. When you're thinking of your dream career, the first step for nearly all Westerners is thinking, but what if I fail and people make fun of me? But for everyone else, the first thing they have to do is learn a completely different language to fluency and then move to a different country. This is essentially the same privilege as the US dollar in that it has a global monopoly on banking and trade, meaning the currency that you create is the currency everyone uses, not just your citizens. So you can pull the levers of not just national, but global monetary and fiscal policy in your favor if you hypothetically had any idea what those levers did. With that said, currently the geopolitical grand strategy of the West is in complete disarray, because prior to Trump 2.0, both the Democrat and Republican plan was essentially to maintain the pre-existing Western rules-based order in conjunction with its allies in Europe and Asia, with only pocketed military intervention as fires needed putting out, or some perhaps slightly imaginary threats emerged. Even now, it's still not clear what the new hard-right grand vision is, or if there even is one, but if you read some of the partially human thinkers that seem to be whispering in Trump's ear, and you really interpret it generously, it would seem the basic premise is we have to stop languishing and twiddling our thumbs as China becomes a threat to our position as global superpower. We need domestic industrial capacity to come back because we have no way to build our critical industry technology in volume if they decouple their economy from us. America shouldn't use our resources to be the protectorate militarily of Europe. They have the resources now to do it themselves. And America will establish political security over Central America, locking down a soft border for the entire northern continent, while using bases on Greenland to secure the Arctic shipping lanes, which are now open nearly year-round since polar ice has retreated in the last 50 years.
Oh my god. Fuck this. Fuck this.
Not because of climate change, though, that doesn't exist. On paper, it's not like there's
So we're hard pivoting from the protection of NATO. I know a lot of this with like how we're trying to de-escalate spending for them, and we're trying to get them to cut some part of their own GDP for their own spending in Europe. And a lot of countries within Europe want to do that themselves just so they don't have to be reliant on the U.S. So now we're trying to move that chokehold to South America. So then we have the same influence that we had 30 years ago on Europe, just in a different space.
There's anything that unusual about the plan. It just represents a particular form of extremely hawkish foreign policy. The problem really is the not on paper part, which is using forceful executive powers to manipulate your allies while demolishing any pre-existing trust and goodwill, then circumventing all democratic political channels to achieve it as fast as humanly possible, causing massive social upheaval in your own country and the world, and all of this is while defying the entire fundamental basis of the Western alliance in the first.
And like, when's it get better? Like, that's what, like, bro, motherfuckers are like, I know people say, are we great yet? But I'm like, what's the final plan? You know what I mean? Like, when people are seeing this, like, there's some people that don't have a problem with it, but I'm like, yo, what are we waiting for? Like, what are we waiting for? When's the great again happening? Everything's more expensive. Inflation's still higher. Job markets are still bad. The housing market's still expensive as fuck. Gold skyrocketed 300% because people are worried the economy's going to fucking crash. We're in an AI bubble. ICE is just killing people. What are we fucking waiting for? When, like that, no, I literally ask myself that every day. I'm like, where's the goal? Right? Because like, I can get the idea of like shit getting bad before it gets better. There has to be things that are bad before you get to the long-term goal. But like, what's the goal? I feel like we're moving the goalpost all the time. Like, what are we talking about? Greenland now? We kidnapped the guy of Venezuela, or now we're controlling Venezuela for some time. I just like, what's happening?
First place, which is ironically destroying the social cohesion and resulting trade and finance empire that made America great post-World War II. From everything I've looked at, pretty much everyone seems to either think that America is trying to intentionally disconnect and isolate itself from Europe and its allies in an act of ultranationalist self-suicide combined with an economic Cold War with China, or that they're finally using strong-arm tactics to concentrate executive power and accelerate decision-making, allowing them to bring back real military strength, security, national identity, and industrial power to a stagnating Western empire. Frankly, I don't think anyone has any idea because everyone I read on the topic just keeps getting every prediction wrong, and if I were playing your boy Donald in a grand strategy game, I'd be very confused, and all I do is keep a very wide berth to protect.
Yeah, like, it's like his moveset changes. Like, if Trump was like a Magic the Gathering card, his description would change every fucking turn. It's like, oh no, he doesn't do that anymore. Now he's going to do this. Like, it's unpredictable. Like, it's just a guy that's like, he wakes up and he's like, yeah, this is what we're going to do now.
My light bulbs. But the good news is that at the very least, if you can get past the lying, the corruption, and Rape Island, the characters this season...
Nah, Trump coin's still going to be up sometime, though. That definitely wasn't like a rug pull, like, you know, started by a small group of people and investors that may have also been involved in the government.
Have been the best written I've ever seen. Unlike politics of back in my day, which was mostly about either having elite level charisma or just being born into the ruling class, winning on being relatable or hot, and then having absolutely no idea what you're doing. Some people are like, yeah, but Jamie, this isn't Game of Thrones. This is the real world. It could end with you dying in a nuclear war. Which always makes me think, nah, I'm down. Now, unlike NATO, what shouldn't be collapsing is your access to an allied network.
This is an ad. Well, that was a fun video.
The app at the link below, or
W casually explained, bruh. Full-blown recession. The gold crash got, bro. We have no nuclear weapons. We'll use them if we have to. What is gold at now? Oh my God! Wait, it's down 8% today. Holy shit.